Now, lastly, I have my NFC West draft grades. We're going to start off with the 49ers. I give them a B. They had a lot of draft capital, and they went heavy early on addressing the pass rush and the interior of their defensive line. Markel Williams should become a pretty productive pass rusher. I don't know if he'll become a superstar, but I can see him being a 7-year, 8-year starter in this league where you consistently get 7 sacks or more with Markel Williams. He was always making big plays for Georgia, and their biggest moments, I believe he was the guy who injured Quinn Ewers, if I'm not mistaken, when they had played Texas the first go around. Then you got Alfred Collins, who has been pretty productive throughout his career for Texas. Really good against the run. He also can be really good against the pass as well. And he could become a really good interior defensive lineman for the 49ers. You're looking at, if he reaches his potential, he's giving you 7, 8 sacks out of that defensive tackle position, which is outstanding. And then you get to their other couple of picks right after. Run that back. Lastly, I have my draft grades for the NFC West. We're going to start with the San Francisco 49ers. They had a lot of draft capital. I give them a B. Markel Williams and Alfred Collins were their two best selections. Markel Williams, you're expecting him to have immediate impact on your pass rush right away with how productive he was at Georgia. It seemed like he did nothing but come up in big moments for Georgia. He had a really good game against Texas. Alfred Collins, who happened to play on Texas, and Georgia saw him a lot. Anytime Alfred Collins was going up against Georgia, he had some really good performances on film. And if he reaches his potential, he could be one of the better defensive tackles in the NFL, good against the run, has a lot of pass rush potential. Now, after these first two picks, that's when things kind of get a little bit murky for the 49ers. You go linebacker and corner, which Nick Martin could turn into a pretty good linebacker, although he is undersized. Jordan Watkins, I like this selection. He was pretty good at Ole Miss. Really good hands. He could turn into a really good deep threat in Kyle Shanahan's offense. Jordan James, you should never question when the 49ers draft a running back. With Kyle Shanahan's scheme, you can just plug and play anybody. Curtis Wark, though, he'll be a really good backup for the 49ers. I love him a lot. I wanted the Steelers to draft him after we couldn't get Shador. He played through a freaking ACL injury, and I believe he suffered this injury like early during the season. You got to be a tough son of a gun to play a whole entire season on a torn ACL. I don't even know how the hell that was possible, but he just earned my respect with that. And if, let's say, worst case scenario, something does happen to Brock Purdy, okay, and you don't have Mac Jones available, I'm guessing Mac Jones won't be there for long. It looks like he's going down the journeyman path at this point. Curtis Wark with some development, he'll be a really good safety net if something does happen to Brock Purdy. Really accurate, makes good decisions with the ball. And what's scary about Curtis Wark is, if he was as good as what he was playing for Indiana, leading them to the CFP on a torn ACL, I can only imagine how good Curtis Wark is fully healthy. So overall, with all the picks that the 49ers had, you probably walked away with, 4 or 5 really good starters. Markel Williams, Alfred Collins probably have the highest potential out of everybody. I would have loved for them to invest it more into the offensive line. Once again, they kind of continue to ignore that position, which is why I give them a B and not a higher grade. With how the offensive line has kind of played these last couple of years, with some of these positions, do you really need another running back? Although we know whoever plays in this system, they immediately get a little bit of a boost due to the Kyle Shanahan scheme. But I felt you could have passed on a safety and drafted another offensive lineman. They didn't get an offensive lineman until the 7th round. So, you could have used a few more picks to get 2 or 3 offensive linemen, give you a little bit of depth, and maybe you walk away with a high level one at guard or something like that. It just was a little bit confusing how they invested heavy on the interior of their defensive line, but they kind of ignored investing heavy into the interior of their offensive line. So they get a B from me. The Arizona Cardinals get an A. They had one of the best draft classes out of anybody. Walter Nolan is going to be an absolute stud. He had the highest potential out of any defensive tackle in this class. He's a freak athlete, really twitchy, and every time you watch Ole Miss play, Walter Nolan was just absolutely wrecking havoc. He's good against the run. He's good against the pass. If he ends up panning out and being the player that the Cardinals expect him to be, I feel he can be DeForest Buckner. Then you get Will Johnson in the second round. The only reason he fell out of the first was due to medical concerns. So he had a knee surgery that required doctors taking cartilage out of his healthy knee and putting it into his unhealthy knee. So you don't really know how long he's going to last in the league. But I do know one thing: for as long as the Cardinals can keep him healthy, he's going to be one of the best corners in the league. He reminds me a lot of Patrick Surtain. He is a fundamentally sound corner. Will Johnson's film is what you use to teach younger corners how to play the position. Really good footwork. Didn't really see him get beat too often, although some scouts may argue that his 2024 film was a step back from the film that he had in 2023. I don't really care. Will Johnson is going to be a stud. He was a top 10 player in this draft, and I cannot believe that the medicals made him fall this far into the draft. If he can play this year, he should have been a first round pick. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. You get Jordan Burch in round 3, then Cody Simon in round 4. Cody Simon was a monster at Ohio State. You talk about somebody that was flying around like he was the damn devil. Like he gave no F's. He was just laying his body on the line. Not super athletic, but just a really good football player. Ohio State produces some really good linebackers that have high football IQ. Tommy Eichenberg, who got drafted by the Raiders, I believe last year, he was pretty good. Like Cody Simon and Tommy Eichenberg kind of are a little bit the same. I don't necessarily think that Cody Simon is as bad in pass coverage as what Tommy Eichenberg was, but against the run, he just has a nose for just sniffing out runs. He causes a lot of havoc plays. Havoc plays are when you get tackles for losses or you just cause a lot of mayhem behind the line of scrimmage. That's what Cody Simon did at Ohio State. It's like as soon as the ball got snapped, he was instantly making a play. And then after these 4 selections, that's when things kind of got a little bit for me for Arizona. I couldn't give them an A+ because they took Denzel Burke in the 5th round. Denzel Burke was barbecue chicken for Ohio State secondary last year. Like against Oregon, he was getting roasted. The first time they played Oregon, he was getting roasted. And anytime Ohio State's defense did give up a big play, which there weren't too many, Denzel Burke was mainly the main catalyst of it. Then you get Hayden Conner, an offensive guard in the 6th round, who possibly could mold into a solid starter. This was a pretty good draft. If it wasn't for you taking Denzel Burke, I would have given you an A+, but there's no way you could have watched Denzel Burke play last year and justified taking him with a mid-round selection. He definitely was a back-end, round 6, round 7 kind of guy. Like, the athleticism is there, the tools are there, and they did get pretty serviceable production out of Marco Wilson, but Denzel Burke was not good. So I kind of bumped them down a little bit for drafting him. But this was a really good draft. And I'm excited to see what Walter Nolan and Will Johnson do as rookies. These guys should immediately be contending for Defensive Player of the Year. The Los Angeles Rams, I'm giving them a B-. You do get kudos for getting an extra first-round pick out of the Atlanta Falcons, which probably will be a top 15 selection. Terrence Ferguson, though, in the 2nd round. Sean McVay knows something that I don't, but I wasn't really that blown away with Terrence Ferguson. I felt you could have probably got him a little bit later in the draft, in my opinion. He's a pretty good run blocker. You know, he has pretty reliable hands, but when you draft the tight end this high, though, you're kind of expecting a lot more. I feel like Elijah Arroyo, Heron Fannin were a lot better than Terrence Ferguson. So I felt you could have got him in like round 4. Josiah Stewart, though, I love Josiah Stewart. Go back and watch his tape against USC. He was so dominant in that game that he forced USC to have to bench their starting left tackle in the second half. He was like Lawrence Taylor reincarnated in that game. And I expect him to have immediate instant impact on this Rams defense, which is already loaded when it comes to the talent that they have on the defensive line. You get Jarquez Hunter, who's a really good power back. Chris Paul Jr., though, he's tied for Josiah Stewart for being my favorite pick that the Rams made in this draft class. I love Chris Paul a lot. He was really productive at Ole Miss last year. I think that he's pretty good in coverage, has pretty good instincts. He just has a pretty good feel for the linebacker position. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see an injury or two occur at linebacker for the Rams. He ends up getting the starting nod and he just runs away with it. I thought he would have went a lot higher than round 5. I had a round 2, round 3 grade on him. So the Rams, I give them a B minus just because, I'm going to give Sean McVay the benefit of the doubt that he saw something special in Terrence Ferguson that I don't. But I wasn't necessarily blown away with what he did at Oregon. And then Jarquez Hunter in the 4th round, you could have gotten some better backs than him. You could have gotten a Damian Martinez. Like, there are so many better backs than Jarquez Hunter in a very loaded running back class where I didn't even have him in my top 10. I had him in my top 15. Lastly, we got the Seattle Seahawks. They had the 3rd best draft this year. They nailed pretty much every single pick they made. Like, their first 5 picks are going to be really highly productive starters. Gray Zabel was their first pick, offensive lineman in the 1st round. He's probably going to play guard, which is definitely a position of need that the Seahawks desperately needed. Their offensive line has been atrocious for a decade plus. Then you get Nick Amaniwari out of South Carolina. I know I mispronounced that, but this dude is a freak. He can play anywhere on your defense. He can play slot corner if you need him. He can play single high if you need him to be. He's really good in coverage. He has a ton of athleticism. He's really good against the run. He can do it all. Then you get Elijah Arroyo. You double up in the 2nd round. He is a really good tight end prospect. Really good speed. Really good hands. He was Cam Ward's safety blanket last season at Miami. Then you get Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round. Now, this was really interesting. Mike McDonald, with him briefly spending time as the Ravens defensive coordinator, he saw how unstoppable Lamar Jackson was going up against him every day in practice and watch him on the sidelines. He probably is looking at Jalen Milroe in that same capacity to where if we can sit him for 2 seasons and help him develop as a passer, eventually, let's say that Sam Darnold gets you to the playoffs. He puts up good numbers like 27-10, 25-10, but you keep up coming up short. You can do something similarly to what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes after his first season. They gave him the starting nod. They traded away Alex Smith to the Washington Commanders. You could see the same thing happen with Jalen Milroe and Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold could be good enough for 2 seasons to where you have enough success, but you're looking for more. You insert Jalen Milroe, and all of a sudden, you go from being a playoff team to being a Super Bowl contender because that's the kind of upside that Jalen Milroe possesses. The NFC doesn't have a lot of aliens at quarterback compared to the AFC where you have Mahomes, you got Josh Allen, you got Lamar, you got Justin Herbert. You just have these super uber athletic quarterbacks to where in the NFC you don't really have that. And Jalen Milroe instantly is one of the more athletic quarterbacks in the league, one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the league, despite not taking a single snap. You're going to find ways to get him on the field. Just because he's going to be sitting behind Sam Darnold doesn't mean that you're not going to find a way to put that elite athleticism to use. If he is just as fast or faster than Lamar, then that's even scarier than Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson isn't the power runner that Jalen Milroe is. Jalen Milroe can beat you with elusiveness. He can beat you with a bevy of spin moves, juke moves, but he also can run through you. He's listed as like 225 pounds. And you have to think that the Seahawks would probably add some more weight on his frame. So you get him to 235, running 4.3 and faster. You don't want to see that in the open field if you're a defensive back. Somebody running at you with this kind of speed, built like a freaking linebacker. The average linebacker in the league weighs 230 pounds. Fred Warner is considered to be the best linebacker right now, right? He's 230. Jalen Milroe, you get him to 235, he pretty much outweighs everybody on the field outside of defensive linemen. And you're going to get tired of tackling this tank throughout the course of a 60-minute game. And if you can just make him a somewhat decent passer to the level that Jalen Hurts is, the Seahawks are going to have a transcendent level quarterback that can elevate their chances of going from a playoff team to a Super Bowl contender. Then you get Riley Mills in the middle portion of the draft. He was really productive at Notre Dame. He can get after the quarterback. He's good against the run. I don't know if he'll ever turn into a stout defensive tackle where he's like an 8+ sack guy, but I can see him giving you like 3, 4, maybe 5 sacks a year. He's really good against the run. But my favorite pick outside of Jalen Milroe and Elijah Arroyo, was Torrey Horton. This was my favorite receiver in this class, and I cannot believe that Seattle got him in the 5th round. When you watch the film of Torrey Horton at Colorado State, go watch his film against Colorado from 2023. I call him the Colorado Killer. I didn't know who the hell this brother was until that Colorado game when he put the world on notice. In 2023 against the Buffs, it seemed like every damn time they threw the ball his way, he was making a big play. He was killing Colorado every single snap in that game. He has great hands. He's a really good route runner. And he missed the majority of last year due to an injury. So for him to come off that injury running 4.3, he's a lot faster than that. You're getting not just a really good possession receiver, but a really good deep threat. He should immediately be contending for legit playing time this year. If you're playing Dynasty Fantasy Football, you need to draft Torrey Horton. Like, this dude is an absolute stud. His production, his last couple of years at Colorado State was off the freaking charts. And then, if you weren't already, nailing your first couple of picks, you double back in round 7, and you get Damian Martinez, who was really good at Miami. He's not really elusive, but he's really good at breaking tackles, has really good vision. The Seahawks came away with 4 or 5 players who not just are going to be long-term starters in this league, but Torrey Horton, Jalen Milroe, Elijah Arroyo, Nick Amenawari, Gray Zabel, they all have all-pro level potential. Like, I love Torrey Horton. I'm a little bit biased to a fault with him, but I really believe he's going to turn into one of the better receivers in the NFL. And for the Seahawks to get him in the 5th round was an absolute steal. But these are my NFC West draft grades.